Howdy YouTube, Matt back with another toy. I purchased the step clamp arrangement sold by Grizzly to go with the 20-inch Harbor Freight drill press. I mentioned when I put that thing together that it is, for all intents and purposes, the same 20-inch drill press that is sold by Grizzly, and so the step clamp kit that comes from them turns out to be a really good fit for this drill press. Today's video is not specifically about these clamps, although I will do one because there are a couple of things you're going to want to know. First, I have to come up with a place to put these things, and they are heavy, very heavy. There are keyholes in the plastic container, but I don't for a minute believe that that plastic is going to hold up more than a week or two with all this weight hanging on it. So I need to put up a shelf that is appropriate for something this size and weight, and somewhere near the drill press. So a shelf for some clamps is not exactly rocket science, but there are a couple of details that you need to pay attention to. First and foremost, those things are heavy. And so you're going to definitely need to employ something where you can use the studs that are in the wall. Odds are, if there's a stud kind of right where you need it to be, one connection to the stud in the center of the shelf is more than enough to support the weight of the clamps. In my case, though, the stud is sort of directly behind the drill press, and then the other one is, of course, 16 inches off to the side. So what I decided to do was make the back plate for this shelf wide enough, in this case it's actually 20 inches wide, that I'll be able to mount it to two different studs. That gives me a plate that I can mount the clamps on here anywhere that I want, and not really worry because the whole thing is going to be supported well in the back. The base of the shelf is just another piece of the same exact plywood, but I have to make a decision as to exactly how I'm going to attach this to the back. All right, without getting completely nutty and doing something like dovetailing or finger joining these two boards together, the strongest thing I could do from a practical standpoint would be to put a rabbet in this piece and then attach it to the bottom, like so. And if I were going to rely solely on the glue, that's what I would do. However, for a shelf in a shop, I have no aversion to mechanical fasteners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drudge up a rather old technology here. I'm going to bust out the Biscuit Joiner. I'm going to put a couple of biscuits along here and obviously matching on here just to make sure these things line up, give it something to stiffen it just a wee bit. Put the glue on it for sure, but then the bulk of the strength is going to come from screws that I'm going to drive through the bottom and into the back. That way the weight of the clamps is really, if it's pulling on a mechanical fastener, it's trying to pull the screws straight out of their threaded holes. All right, the key to making something like a biscuit joint work for you instead of against you is to make sure that the two pieces you're putting together are lined up exactly the way you want them when you mark across for the lines where the biscuits are going to go. And I always do this with a square just to make sure that I get these things exactly where I want them. And what I've done here is I have clamped these two boards down to the table saw table pressed up against the fence. I know this is a nice flat surface I can register these two ends against, and by having the clamps there, I'm 100% sure that as I'm moving around on the pieces, moving the square back and forth, they are not going to move. So I've got my 4 registration marks for the biscuit cutter. I know that those are going to line up perfectly. All right, for those of you who have not had the pleasure of working with a biscuit joiner, it's a joinery method that has fallen out of favor of late, and probably with good reason. They're a little bit persnickety to set up, and when it's all said and done, while these biscuits do go a long way to helping you align things, they don't really add that much strength to anything. This is pressed together sawdust, so I don't know how strong it really is laterally, but it's better than nothing, and as I mentioned before, the screws are going to do all the real work here. You set the depth on this thing with this scale on the side here. You crank this geared knob up and down in 1/16 of an inch, and for this particular piece, we're really measuring in from the back. The biscuits are going to help attach this to the edge of the other one. So the biscuit joiner is going to go in something like this, and we'll get plunged down in order to make the cut. The dust chute is right here on the back, right square in my face. So safety glasses are going to be a must, and even though I'm only going to make a couple of cuts, might be worth hooking up the dust hose. When it's all said and done, you got 4 slots that those biscuits will drop right into. And the nice thing is they do get cut a little bit oversized, so you got some wiggle room. If they don't line up perfectly, not the end of the world. Pretty much the same process for the other piece, except this time we're going to be cutting into the edge of the board so that the pieces can mesh together. Another trick to biscuit joinery. For the love of God, don't touch anything. If you had the biscuit cutter set up to do piece A, don't touch it, don't adjust it, don't change it, don't go off and cut something else in the meantime. Cut matching pieces before you touch anything on the tool. Otherwise, there's no hope that they're ever going to line up later. Okay, the best part of biscuits, the glue up. I'm going to throw a little bit in each one of these slots. I'm going to shove the biscuit in there, and then I'm going to glue this joint together. I'm going to put it in the clamps just to pull the whole thing tight, and then I'm going to pre-drill and put in some square drive screws to hold the whole thing together. The one other thing that I'm going to do is I am going to put some glue on this corner block and shove it in here. This will act as a brace. Take the strain of the corner off of that joint that we just created. Not completely sure why my glue ups always look like some sort of Franken clamp job, but it'll get it done. Half hour in those clamps, and this thing will be ready to hang up. Well, there she blows, YouTube. It's been 24 full hours. I let this thing sit in the clamps the entire time. I want 100% strength on the glue, and so waiting is really the best option. There are 4 screws that go through the back plate and into the studs. I don't know if you can see the lines or not. One tiny little oops. When I put the screw in here, I hit the screw in the drywall. So I got a hole there, but hey, that's the beauty of shop projects, right? I did go ahead and put screws through the keyholes on the plastic. That's not really to hold the weight of this. It's just to keep it from falling over as I put stuff in and out of here. Can't wait to press it into service, but that's a project for another day. Till then, stay safe, YouTube.